Excellent. I just got the green light here from Facebook that we are live on Industry Leader. And this is actually the last segment before we take a brief summer recess. And I look forward to, oh, got to have an echo on my phone there, just making sure we were live. I have Courtney Miller with Ecobuild Architects, who's one of the top architects in the East Bay area, and he has some amazing designs that we're going to look at. And he's also just a great guy to work with. And we've done a couple of videos, which I really think showcase his work in a interesting way. He's a great video spokesperson as well, as you'll see. But I wanted to just get right to Courtney. And first, thank you, Courtney, for coming on Industry Leader to tell us your story. And if you don't mind just telling us about you and your professional journey.
Thanks, David. It's really an honor. Basically, I've been in this business for a while. I had my practice I graduated from UCLA way back when, and ended up when I graduated, there was a big recession, so I ended up back east. I went back to Texas, and then worked on a lot of commercial with projects with other architects, and then went back to Boston, had my own practice back there, sort of doing super insulated, passive and active solar homes, and was very active in the early stages of the green building movement, doing a lot of conferences and speaking and some really interesting. I had this company called New England Solar Homes, and then eventually I figured out that, wait a minute, I built a practice in a part of the country that I had no intention of staying. And so I figured out, wait a minute, I got to get back to family. My dad's down in Santa Barbara. So I moved back in 2005 and worked for big commercial firms for about 11 to 12 years, and opened my own practice again in 2017. So it's been about 5 years. I'm into my 5th year working for myself again, and building up my staff, and it's really been exciting. One of those highly versatile boutique residential commercial firms doing an amazing mixture of different projects. With my background in just such a wide gamut of large commercial, high rise, hospitality, K through 12, and commercial office, and residential and multifamily. I just have an amazing, a good versatility to take on just about any project. I was just talking, David, just before we started, I was just talking to a developer who is playing around with a lot that he's considering buying down in Hayward to do some townhouses. So I'm going to be putting together some layouts for him and some elevations of preliminary proposal for some townhouses down in Hayward. So it's exciting to have opportunities in a wide gamut of different kinds of building types.
Excellent. And I do love talking to you about all the things that you do and kind of how you approach your business and marketing as well, because what you do is so visual. I'm a visual guy, and I think it's important to showcase all the different things and looks that you do. And I know it's also a very interesting time to be involved in the building industry with the housing market, and Oakland really becoming a bigger community, a lot of new developments and things. I did want to just ask you about what you see is what makes you unique as an architect out there in a highly competitive field.
I would say, there are a lot of people that I would say I'm unique in that when you come to me, that you're actually having an opportunity to work with a small firm, but you can do just about any size project. So whereas there are big firms, that have, a lot of people, and you're not sure who you're going to be working with. In my case, you know exactly who you're going to be working with, and we can take on anything that you have as as a potential project that you want to have done. And we have like incredible depth and understanding of sustainability as well. Obviously, the name, it sort of speaks for itself. I mean, I'm one of the most experienced green architects in the country, um, and working on different scale projects. Like behind me is the La Posta mission, the project for the La Posta Mission Indians Community Center in eastern San Diego County. And it was an exciting project where we had an opportunity to really visualize an opportunity for this tribe to really express a place for gathering that would really honor their tribal traditions and their aspirations for their youth. There's a youth center as a part of this project. So I hope to, I'm going to show you a little bit we're going to start off. I'm going to start off and show you, what we did there for that design.
Yeah, beautiful. I know I put up your picture and promoting your segment, and I have kind of a record number of views. We had over 60 views on your story. I think it has to do with kind of what you do, and also you have that beautiful photograph of around your office. And let's jump to some of your recent projects. I did give you sharing privileges, and just show us some of the gamut of what you produce.
Can you see it now or not? No. Let's see. Not. Let me share. Okay, share screen. Great. Got it. There we go. Share. Let's see. View full screen. All right, there it is. This is La Posta, Band of Mission Indians, and unfortunately, because of the state's finances right now, this tribe has not been able to fund this project to move it into construction phase. But we will take it all the way through design development, and it was really fun to be able to work in this climate. It's down near the border with Mexico. Their La Posta Band of Mission Indians is located about 56 miles east of San Diego in Laguna Mountains, near the town of Boulevard, California. They were established. Their reservation was established in 1893, and they wanted to have a kind of a center that would not only have their mission, their tribal offices and a conference room, but also have a large assembly area for gathering, a central courtyard, and a youth center on the left side there that included an exercise room. This is the layout of the center. Come into this grand hallway under the canopy, and you have an opportunity to either go to the assembly room on the right, assembly area there, meeting space that has a large kitchen, and can spill out into the courtyard. So this was really a key aspect. I realized that they really, they never mentioned anything about a courtyard, but I had a sense that if they're going to be gathering, that they would love to be able to have a way to move right out into a courtyard after, conclusion of a meeting. As it turns out, this is the location for this community center is in Boulevard, California, is in a fairly temperate climate zone there. It's not as hot as you might think down near the Mexican border. The highs only really get into the high, maybe 90 degrees, customarily the highest, and lowest, get around freezing, but it's not as hot as you might think. So on the left side, you can see the youth center, exercise room, and conference room right in the middle. And so, getting out in the courtyard, it would be, it's going to be a nice thing to be able to do that. So here is the left side of the youth center and exercise with nice sunshade devices, giving good AC load avoidance, making sure that there's super, really energy efficient building envelope and good daylight control. Um, Here is the inside assembly room, and a view toward the courtyard. Um, and here is that courtyard. Looking back, you can see the conference room sort of to the center right, and a little pool along there, and plenty places for people to sit as they come out of the auditorium and to gather outdoors with beautifully sun shaded areas. Um, this is their conference room. Again, looking out towards that courtyard with double doors, two sets of double doors leading out to the courtyard. So there's plenty of opportunities for that inside outside experience. And it would be nice to get this project built. And so that's the La Posta community center. Let's see if we can somehow find the funding for this. Anyway,
It's definitely one of the most beautiful community centers I've ever seen. I hope maybe in the infrastructure bill or something we'll get that funding, but we'll see.
thank you, David. It was fun doing it, and we didn't, as it turned out. I mean, I was hired by an engineering firm that hires architects, and they sort of design Everest. They help clients find architects at for reasonable fees, and try to help clients that not they don't normally maybe work with or couldn't afford like a high-end large firm to do their project. And so it was a great opportunity for me. And but I largely did not have much input from them. I was pretty much working on my own, because the budget for this was so lean that there was initial sort of discussions about the program, and I just went from there. I just took the ball and ran. And um,
If you don't mind, maybe if we can do kind of a quick version of some of your other drawings. And I did want to just see if you could highlight any of the innovative things that kind of make them eco-friendly. I know that you pointed out a couple things in those designs, but I think you really bring this great background, that such a good eye for design, but you can make it look good too. So I'm just trying to, for people who may not have that experience with eco-friendly, if there's certain features about it that you feel are particularly innovative.
well, the community center, for example, of course, was all going to be off grid and have like all there's plenty of roof area for solar, grid independence, energy self-reliance, zero net energy. But in California, as we all know, with these drought conditions, and in a situation like place like near the Mexican border, you can only imagine that water is fairly precious. So a key thing at this facility is gray water. They would have, look, you can see the landscape around there is very drought tolerant, but we would have a gray water system to reuse any water from the restrooms and the kitchen to do the irrigation. And we could actually have a surge tank that would actually capture kitchen and restroom lavatory water, shower water, and actually use it for toilet flushing. So to have as near self-reliance in water. The most important thing in California that right now, at this very perilous time that we're in right now with this drought that we're facing, it's very scary for a lot of people. The other thing, of course, is daylight control. I mentioned before, that in a climate like this, that shading the glass, and ways to make people feel comfortable and avoid use of a lot of air conditioning. That if we can have operable windows, shading, and use passive ventilation strategies. If you have a high bay space, you can use a stack effect driven ventilation in commercial buildings. More and more of this is being brought back. We were doing all of this back in the 30s, 40s, when before central air conditioning took off in the 30s, and or what was it, the 40s and 50s, I'd say 50s, when buildings became so completely separated, non-responsive to their environment. You can see on the face of the building, the overhangs, the trellis. It's part of a vernacular expression when people understood that shade it was essential. So it's not just a coincidence that we're using those kind of vernacular forms that make buildings comfortable and be able to be more resilient in the face of rising temperatures, and that buildings are going to have to, the energy demands that buildings have to respond. Well, the energy demands that the grid has to respond to from buildings, if they're not designed well, that start to just consume huge amounts of air conditioning requirements. I can show you, step into some other projects real quick. Let me see. Let me go back. Let me get you share again. Share screen. Okay, there we go. Great. Share. Okay, look, we're going to jump into a project of mine that is under construction right now. Speaking of, we were speaking of projects that are not funded. Here's a project that's actually moving forward. And it's up in Montclair, in the hills of Montclair, and it's a renovation of a mid-century modern house that the building owner wanted to have some terraces, really sort of revitalize some terraces that are out in front on the south side of the main living spaces and master bedroom in their house. This was in Scheme 1, early phase terrace idea off their living room, which they decided not to do. But then we moved more to this, the west terrace off their master bedroom, to do these podium pavers, new podium pavers by Bison over a new IG roofing membrane. And it is, you can see the large format. These are Fleetwood windows. So we're replacing all the windows, and the owner decided to do, speaking of sustainability and energy, decided to upgrade the envelope to have all new insulation on the exterior walls and roof, and to raise the resilience, the fire resilience characteristics of the exterior wall. Now here's the deck now under construction. We're putting in some 12-inch LVL beams to help strengthen the deck to hold the concrete pavers. And here's an elevation. You can see going across the large format windows, the new entry landing, concrete landing coming up with these nice reveals and stainless steel railings. Those are the podium pavers on the left, and the new custom entry door. And here is what a podium paver is, what it looks like. It's a 2-centimeter concrete podium paver that is installed on pedestals over, in our case, it's an IG membrane. And here is this James Hardy artisan shiplap siding, 9-inch exposure that we're going to be installing to give the exterior of the house more fire resilience. This is 1/2 inch thick compared to the usual 1/4 inch thick James Hardy siding. It's fiber cementitious siding that is very resilient to fire. Now, this is a project, a single-family home in Hayward that we're just about to submit for design review. and it's right in the wildlife urban interface. So we're being very aggressive on the exterior skin as far as the kinds of, we're going to use a James Hardy um, reveal panel over rock wool insulation. So I'm going to go show you a detail of that a little bit later. But this is kind of coming close up to the design, up to the house. It's using, it has a Tesla solar roof, and it'll have approximately about 10 kilowatts of, or I think it's 12, we'll have about 12 kilowatts of electricity to power the house, to have, to achieve zero net energy. Um, and here's the entry and the, sort of overhangs. Again, similar theme about shading control that, I used on the La Posta Mission Indians project. Here's the rear with, and the rear deck looking out over the hills. And you might ask, well, how do we give fire resilience to to that wood decking? Quite a challenge there. Yes, I would say that's is a challenge. And, the client decided they didn't want to go to a non-combustible construction. So we're going to have to coat this wood in a way that to make it non-flammable. So that is something that will have, that may not be as environmentally sound. It's better that it be like non-combustible material. Now here's the floor plan where you come in at the entry level with a wide, large open living kitchen and their master bedroom up to the left side there. This is the south orientation. So on the left is the west side. And in the back, you can see that deck going out the back. And then here's the lower level with 3 bedrooms and a den. These are the panels. This is the Hardy Reveal panel over rain screen system that we're using with rock wool. This rock wool continuous insulation is not only a superior in low energy building envelope approach to reduce energy requirements. It is also fireproof. Rock wool, so it prevents thermal bridging. Should there be a fire, not only do you have that fiber cementitious exterior cladding, the Hardy, the rock wool prevents that radiant heat from starting to burn up the sheathing. So that's a very robust exterior envelope. Now in Australia, they're doing things like having moving screens like over the windows. So the next step for a project like this would be to have moving metal screens over those windows, which is not in the budget, and the client decided they didn't want to go to that extent. But that's what they're doing in Australia. They've been experimenting with that for a lot longer time. And they have a whole rating system called the BAL rating system for how the degree to which a building is fire resistant. So the second most important thing in California, and I mentioned before, gray water system installation. You could say this is probably the most important. Obviously, fire resistance right now is ultra important. Now, this is a project by it was architect is Square 3 Design Studios, and contractor was Pete Moffett Construction. This is about a gray water system that was installed by Watersprout Design Build in Oakland, California. And this is their plumbing plan, which shows how they've captured water from their sinks and showers and brought it to they have a holding tank from which they can distribute the water out into the landscape. This is essential for any Californian considering large, new construction or a large remodel, or has large irrigation. Gray water systems are just so essential. I don't need to reinforce that. Dave, I don't know how much time you have, but I could show you a few more projects, but I don't want to, take up too much time, but this is a smaller project. It's a bathroom, a master bath and second bathroom renovation. So these are some of our renderings of these two baths that we are remodeling in Oakland.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah, we're good on time.
okay, great. As far as sustainable features, I would say that the non-toxic, low VOC, paints and using, very LED lighting throughout. Um, and being obviously the code, thanks to the code, all those water fixtures have to be super low, water efficient. um, and let's see, I would say that mostly that was a design project that did not have, like high emphasis on ultra eco eco-friendly materials. They're nice glazed tiles. um, and this is a project that was sold in fall of 2019. And anytime you're doing a renovation, you're salvaging an existing home and you're adding more livability to it. That's the first order in a way of sustainability, is salvage, not new construction, to renovate. This was that house. The second floor of this new home is actually where the house was on the hill before we added the new floor below. So most of the hill was excavated out, and so that we could create this lower level for this two-story home. It was formerly a one-story house, sitting up there on the hill, and we, revitalized it. And this is the design vision for the terrace coming out, at the kitchen in the back there, and the arrival and being able to move back into that terrace. This inside outside relationship, enjoyment of the outdoors. What other, I mean, I guess that doesn't make me very unique as a California architect. I would say that, most of us as architects working in this climate, um, are thinking a lot about this indoor outdoor relationship, and the landscape, and how we can make these fabulous, spaces that are related to the outdoors. Some of the interiors, and looking back out to that terrace. It's a very small house. Talk about sustainability. I mean, this house is only like 1,300 square feet. It's got one, two, three bedrooms upstairs. It's really, they put a lot of money into a tiny house, really, and relatively small house. And in a way, that's a very high level, a way to reduce your ecological footprint by living in not such gigantic living spaces, living area. So here's the bathrooms upstairs, and I think that's it for what I have for slides today.
Oh, perfect. I did just in seeing some of your designs, and I'm just wanted to ask a bonus question already.
I
Uh,
need some
Carrie,
glue.
We have a guest
my
person
production
coming in here.
assistant, Carrie, she
need
actually
some-
runs the show around here, but
I
um,
need some glue, David.
okay, give me a second. I just want to ask you about your inspirations for design. You just have such an eye and a knowledge of some of these very innovative materials, the fire resistant, and you're kind of on top of these latest trends. But how did you kind of get into some of these designs and kind of build this character for the design that you like and that you serve people with?
You know, I have to admit that there's a lot of, good designers around the Bay Area that you get inspired by. And I think we're all sort of being, kind of rift off each other, that there's a community of, sharing that goes on. And I don't know that I'm much of a like an island unto myself, that I'm inventing the wheel. Um, it's there is that subtle. We're all artists, A lot of a lot of the architects that working in California, in the East Bay, and San Francisco, and there's just I think a fantastic community of innovators, and we all sort of inspire each other. And you know, it's really personal, really. I think what clients uh, may appreciate with any particular architect, their expression, their particular take on utilizing inspiration from vernacular forms or the past, or to what extent I guess my style is certainly more a warm modernism. I consider myself a modernist, and inspired by Frank Lloyd Wright, especially his works in California, down in Los Angeles, where I grew up, and also went to school at UCLA. Um, I think a lot of people are, come from a background and inspiration from Frank Lloyd Wright. That kind of dates me as well. But a Marin County Courthouse is one of my favorite buildings. And when I teach at Laney College. It's right on the homepage of my Intro to Architecture course.
Beautiful. Yeah, we were just up in Grass Valley last weekend, and there's some beautiful Art Deco, the city hall up there, and some of the architecture. There's so many treasures, around California with architecture. Um,
I was just down in Santa Barbara, and I was looking at just looking again at the Santa Barbara County Courthouse. That is probably the masterpiece, the greatest masterpiece in all of California, is that building. It's phenomenal. It has, I mean, you walk through the halls of that building, and it's hard to imagine that people are actually being, that are about to be incarcerated, or to be, put in jail. It doesn't seem like a jail. And I think that's really, in a way, the spirit of what California should be more of, that we should remember what maybe the aspirations and dreams of what California was supposed to be, a place of a more egalitarian place where people might find justice. And in a place like that, where it isn't this place of incarceration, that you were actually, maybe there's a hope and a dream of reforming people. And that building certainly speaks to that, of just ultimate, of community and justice and healing, and a celebration. I mean, it's amazing. I mean, to make a courtyard, I mean, you don't see something like that today. Everything, courthouse buildings are very severe and scary places to go, compared to that being almost like a celebration of community. It just seems hard to believe that anybody could have done anything wrong, in a building like that.
Yeah, well, Santa Barbara is a relatively pristine place compared to some other places in the country, especially currently. So I did want to get to a couple kind of nuts and bolts questions about your business and how you work with your clients, and we can end it there. I want to just ask you about your process for working with your clients, say a new client or existing clients, kind of how you approach a project if somebody comes to you with a need.
Well, just yesterday I was putting together a list of items. I spoke to a woman and her family, a couple in Kensington, in the hills in Kensington, and she had quite a list of items. So I was able to take good notes and create a spreadsheet, and actually ran a construction guesstimate on what I thought it might cost. And it ended up, interestingly enough, right at her budget. I think, I actually tried to overestimate a little bit some of the items. So it may be that we may have some success in, staying on budget on that. And that's really key, to be able to not only start to, have some, like brainstorm on some great design ideas for how to implement the dream of what a couple or it's trying to achieve in a renovation, but also to quickly have some resources available, like other, contractors, builders who might help on the pricing. If I can sort of provide a spreadsheet and an itemization at first, that sort of really helps.
Okay, great. And this has become what I call $1 million question here, and something I like to end with. And I will give you a chance to make some closing remarks. But who is your ideal client out there? Who do you like to work with?
I guess my ideal, clients are everything in a way. I mean, they are the vision in a way that, I'm surprised sometimes when people say to me, what is the eco solution here? They realize right away that, I have that sort of background. And so it's the clients that really have the vision and the dream to really achieve certain goals that push me. They go, and I tend to be a little bit maybe after being in this for so long and sort of knowing as much as I do, I'm usually a little bit cynical that most people are not really, don't really want to push it that far. I'm a little bit skeptical about it, and so when the client is constantly maybe asking me, okay, what can we do, what is the greenest thing, I look for that opportunity where, like, for example, I had a client that came to me and said right away, what can we do for these cabinets, how can we do green cabinets? And so I took her to a place where we found these bamboo cabinets. I showed her the bamboo cabinets I used in my own kitchen. And so and then we went to the Eco Home Improvement down in Berkeley on San Pablo. Great place, a wonderful place to go source green materials. And when you have a client that kind of has that priority and wants to push in that direction, it's really fun.
Great. And it is such a fun culture around here with design and all the creatives that we have. So I think it is a invaluable kind of environment that we work in here. You've actually, for example, taught me about some design, some of the fonts that you were talking about. I now use in a number of my videos, these kind of elegant white fonts, which I really love. And I'll show you some more examples for our next project in animating those. And if you do have any closing remarks, things that I didn't ask about, feel free. Otherwise, we are just about at time, and I got my production assistant here.
She's getting impatient. We're all getting impatient here.
I have a new project here that involves glue.
Well, David, I want to compliment you. You're a great, you're really a great interviewer. You're very, a great listener, and you throw out some really great questions. And I would love to see more of your interviews coming up, because that hopefully will be as enjoyable as it's been for me.
Great. No, I'll share those with you. And I always look for something special in folks that, or almost have a little bit of a philosopher, another story. And you definitely have that. So I love talking about kind of the bigger picture of things. And I think we got into some of that today, and we'll look forward to having you back at some point to share some new designs and projects. And thanks so much for the great testimonial and coming on today.
Thanks so much, David. Really enjoyed it.
Great. Thank you.
Okay, bye.